Some of you may know that I posted a video a while back on my opinions on the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, the Booster Course Pass. Originally, that video was just planned to be a standalone video, but after Wave 4 released, I figured it would be better to split up the videos, as the first one was already long enough. My first video covered my opinions on Wave 1 and 2, so if you haven't seen it, be sure to check out that video when you have the chance. But, in summary, I didn't think very highly of the first couple of waves of the DLC. The only tracks I really liked being Ninja Hideaway and Calamari Desert. And will Wave 3 and 4 follow suit, continuing the cycle of bad tracks? Or will they step up their game and prove that the DLC is actually a good idea? Let's find out. Wave 3 opens up with another tour track. Christ, these are getting stale. This time, it is London Loop. Now, as someone from the UK, I was intrigued to see what they would do with this track. I haven't ever played Mario Kart Tour, so I hadn't seen the original. So, what was my thoughts on it? Is this meant to be Tower Bridge? Because it doesn't look anything like it. The London Eye is present. Right, where's Build-A-Bear? It's accurate to London, though I'm noticing a severe lack in Matilda. Right, I'm being too British. Time to move on before I start to pat my pockets to check if everything's there before getting up and leaving. London Loop, while it has some split paths, is still very linear, although the split paths that are present are pretty nice. The open parks provide some areas for mushroom shortcuts, although it is slightly annoying that this one requires 2. And aside from the essential massive straightaway in lap 3, the track does feel pretty fun to play on. It's definitely one of the more linear tracks, but the changes in the laps feel really smooth. And I can't be the only one to feel like this music is a few chants and squid lines away from being a convincing Splatoon track. Overall, it's a nice track, probably one of the better tour tracks, 6 out of 10. The next track in the DLC is Boo Lake. Now, when I heard that Boo Lake was being added, I was scared. I saw what they did to Sky Garden, however, seeing that they also heavily improved Snowland, I had no idea what to expect. Especially since this was a track that I wanted in the DLC, so I was very worried. But when it finally came to the game, I was not disappointed. Boo Lake was improved drastically from the original. First, it's a lake now, which was an issue that I had with the original, but now there's water. And it was utilised perfectly, especially in the underwater sections with the fish bones. It genuinely has a creepy atmosphere, and I like it a lot. Also, this is the first track in the DLC to actually utilise anti-gravity, excluding Sky High Sunday because it was active for the whole track. I'm surprised that it took them this long to add it, but at the same time I'm glad they didn't. It shows they're listening, and tracks won't be straight up rips from Tour going forward. Also, this track looks great. If I didn't know any better, I'd think this was a base game track. Are Nintendo finally listening? Are tracks gonna stop looking like they were made out of Play-Doh? I don't know, but it's safe to say that this is the best track in the DLCs so far. 9 out of 10. Very little is stopping it from being a perfect 10 out of 10. It's mainly the fact that as a track, it does perform slightly worse than tracks like Ribbon Road. The next track in the third wave is Alpine Pass, also known as Rock Mountain outside of Europe. For some reason, I'll stick with Alpine Pass because it doesn't sound as fucking stupid. And it, fuck's sake, I spoke too soon. It looks like it was made out of Play-Doh. Shit. This track has remained exactly the same as it was in 7, apart from the anti-gravity section, which was honestly to be expected. It's got a gliding section at the end, which makes the second lap a lot more interesting as you can glide over these pipes. It's not a bad track, it's just nothing overly interesting. Plus it was a letdown, especially considering how Boo Lake looks. 4 out of 10. The next track is another track that, while lesser, is still pretty overrated. Maple Treeway was... wait, this is another 7 retro track. This track is probably the worst iteration of Maple Treeway out there. Firstly, the track feels very green. The original was way less saturated, and it complemented the autumn aesthetic very well. Now it feels like these colours clash a lot, and this track can't really decide whether it's autumn or spring. This becomes mostly apparent on the log branches, where the tree just has these weird moss patches that just feel out of place. The reintroduction of half pipes is pretty nice though, but what isn't nice is the glider ramp at the end of the track. This removed the flowy bridge, which was one of my favourite parts about this track. It was also a part of the theming of the track too, which makes me even sadder that it was removed. Besides, they already had a glider section, so it's not like they were starved for one. Overall, this track just feels empty compared to the original. Whether it's something simple like the smaller houses in the background being removed, or just straight up track paths not being present, Maple Treeway just feels empty and lacking of the life that it had in Wii. 3 out of 10. The next track is yet another tour track. how many more of these are there? Berlin Byways is quite linear, but it does have occasions where paths are split and shortcuts are open. And hey, this track has cars too, which makes the track feel like it has much more life. Although, just like Shroom Ridge, they do ignore traffic laws. Berlin Byways is pretty forgettable for me though, even if it has the cars. But I guess it's not terrible, plus the music slaps, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Next up is a track that was in DS, and therefore I have very strong opinions on it. Peach Gardens is a track that I love a lot, and when I first saw it, I thought, shit, it's been torrified again. It seems that any grassy track is a struggle for them, as tracks like Calamari Desert and Boo Lake are fine, but then tracks like Toad Circuit, Shroom Ridge, and of course, Peach Gardens are hit a lot harder by tour graphics. But overall, Peach Gardens feels empty. They had the opportunity to go wild, making a large, fancy royal garden with every plant known to man. But instead, it feels like they did the opposite. The tall flower beds in the original and the Wii remake were removed for flat patches of flowers, and at points they feel like they were brushed to the side as opposed to being a prominent part of the track. The giant piranha plant just doesn't feel right at all, compared to the giant hedges. These hedges are noticeably missing throughout the whole track, and it just feels wrong. Once again, removing the charm that the original had. This part of the track also just feels empty. There used to be so many big trees, but now it's just an open field. Why? Also, what happened to the ramp? Why remove that? At first I was not a big fan of the giant hedges of Peach, Luigi, Toad and Toadette, but once I got to the final lap and began to race backwards, I liked it a lot more, as this became a glider section. While I would much prefer reverse races to be its own separate thing, like mirror mode, I can appreciate the experimentation with reverse tracks similarly to Paris Promenade, but the track itself on many parts feels empty. They could have done a lot more but chose not to, and I can't help but find it disappointing. 4 out of 10. Now I've ragged a lot on the tracks in the DLC in these videos, but the next track is another good one. Merry Mountain, looking at the layout, looks like it's going to be a pretty boring track. I mean, look at that straight away. But in reality, it's actually a really good track. You start off by driving up the mountain with a sleigh taking off and flying over the track with you. The atmosphere is amazing and it really feels festive. Perfect time for the holidays too. The usage of half pipes here are perfect. You can either take the turn tight and save time, or go wide and get an item. Then going down the mountain, you can hit other racers, the spinny boost poles, or whatever, to gain speed during the anti-gravity, and then take the glider ramp on the second lap. It's a thrill to play on, and I really like it. 8 out of 10. I'll rag on Tour a lot, but it has some good nitro tracks. And finally, the last track we have so far is, of course, 3DS Rainbow Road. Those of you who saw my video on my rankings of every Rainbow Road track already know my opinions on them, so if you want me to go in depth as to my opinions on it, then I'll leave a link on the end cards for you, or you can check the description for the link to the video. But in short, I ranked 3DS Rainbow Road at 9th. I think the original is much better, ranking it at 5th, but this track is still solid, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Not my favourite Rainbow Road track, but it's far from the worst. And that wraps it up for Wave 3 of the DLC. Overall, I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. There's a noticeable improvement in the tracks visually if you forget that Alpine Pass exists, and the fact that the anti-gravity is actually being utilised makes me very happy, despite how little it actually does gameplay wise. Now, onto the most recent wave, Wave 4. Wave 4 opens up with another tour track, this time being Amsterdam Drift, and honestly, it's a visual upgrade. It doesn't look overly out of place compared to the base game tracks, just don't look at the grass. It's definitely one of the more interesting tour tracks with a very nice underwater section, and going backwards to see other racers drive past you will always be fun on any track. Although it's still a tour track, so it won't be crazy up high in my favourites, but it's still solid, 5 out of 10. The next track in the Fruit Cup is another GBA track. You all probably know my thoughts on the GBA track so far. So what do I think of GBA Riverside Park? Well, it's mid. I'm sorry. The layout is very similar, but still very much dumbed down. Like, where's this bit? What's wrong with this? It's the little details like this that really annoys me about the GBA remakes. It can't be that much of a hassle to add this part of the track. I mean, it'd help break the straightaway. Looking at the track itself, it looks incredible though. It's definitely what I would expect from a GBA remake. The Tui's on the track are also... Tui? I almost call him Jerry. Jerry's are also really cool. A great addition that we haven't seen in any track yet, and the fact that they carry mushrooms gives some potential for blue shell dodges. Also, the cave and the waterfall are incredible. They really enhance the track. Overall, this track gets a 7 out of 10. If the layout was fixed, this would definitely be higher, but it really does suck to see Nintendo continuing to butcher the layouts of GBA tracks. It's not Sky Garden though. Sky Garden is still utter donkey nutsack. The next track that we're going to be looking at is a fan favourite track, DK Summit, or DK's Snowboard Cross. Okay, real talk, who the fuck named that? It's definitely one of the best tracks in Mario Kart history, but its remake? Well, I should probably say demake. It doesn't look terrible, but it does get hit hard by tall graphics, which is surprising seeing that Snowland was fine, and that was a whole 2 waves ago. The half pipes in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are extremely janky, and are really hard to use effectively. Or maybe I'm just shit, that's possible as well. And while it isn't as noticeable on tracks like Maple Treeway and Merry Mountain, DK Summit's whole gimmick is the half pipes. This track is dedicated to them, so the fact that the half pipes play like shit makes this track in turn play like shit. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's still an okay track, but it could have been so much better if the half pipes were actually somewhat functional. Also, I just want to just appreciate 200cc on this track. It's bound to give anyone a brain aneurysm. The final track in the Fruit Cup is Yoshi's Island, and let me just say, this is the cutest track that we've ever seen in Mario Kart history. This is the first Yoshi themed track that we've seen since DS Yoshi Falls, which is far from a fan favourite. I'm a sucker for tracks based on previous Nintendo games like Airship Fortress, Hyrule Circuit and Tick-Tock Clock, and seeing that I grew up playing Yoshi's Island DS, as well as being a Yoshi main in Mario Kart, I had high hopes. And fuck were those hopes met. The glider section feels so interactive, especially trying to hit this question cloud thing from Yoshi's Island 2, which opens up a shortcut. See, Nintendo? You don't have to use those ugly red bridges. Also, the coins. The coins have little Yoshi faces on them, and I couldn't love them more. There are so many little details about this track that I love, that if I went over all of them, most of this video would just be about Yoshi's Island. It really deserves its own appreciation video. 10 out of 10. Perfect track. My new favourite track, I'll say. I almost bought the DLC after playing this track. I'm not even joking. I love it that much. After the absolute banger that is Yoshi's Island, we move on to Bangkok Rush. Another tour track. Does it hold up to Yoshi's Island? Fuck no, like any track could. But for a tour track, it's actually surprisingly good. The different areas that you drive through are very unique. The boat lake thing at the start is cool, and the food stand next to the train tracks is also very interesting. It's unlike what we've seen on tracks like Super Bell Subway and Calamari Desert. The mid to late stages of the track give me big Mushroom City vibes, which is another track that I'm hoping for in the DLC. Also, the part where you jump off the food stalls is another interesting section of the track. Overall, Bangkok Rush is a very strong tour track, and if they were all like this, then I would have zero complaints about the tour tracks. 7 out of 10. Next up is DS Mario Circuit. I know a lot of people were disappointed when this was announced, as the leaks had promised Airship Fortress. But let's be real, the leaks are all fake. They all just say popular tracks that they know the community will piss themselves over. Plus, there was zero leaks saying anything about new characters until Birdo came out. Then all of a sudden, every leak started mentioning about how they knew every new character. Just quit listening to the leaks and take them all with a grain of salt. Anyways, about Mario Circuit, I already thought the DS Mario Circuit was one of the stronger Mario Circuit tracks, even saying that they should have taken Toad Circuit's place when Wave 1 initially came out. And I was not at all disappointed by the remake. The track plays out mostly the same. The fire piranha plants are back too, which is fun, but then all of a sudden we get thrown into a pine forest. This is new and wasn't in the original track. But oh wait, once you get to lap 3 there is... What the actual fuck? Who's this fucker? Why is this random ass Wiggler on the track? Is this hinting at Wiggler coming back as a playable character? Fuck knows, but I think I'm going to call him William. William was just such a weird surprise to see in this track, but I love his addition. It's really funny to me that they just had this asset from Maple Treeway and just decided to add it to this track. Overall, I give it an 8 out of 10. Considering it's the first time we've seen this track come back, it's definitely a good remake. And the music slaps. The next track is... How the hell have we gone 4 waves without having a GCN track? It is a track that I'm not overly happy was included. Waluigi Stadium has been seen twice now, once in Wii and again in 8 Deluxe, but its brotherly counterpart, Wario Coliseum, has never been seen in any Mario Kart game as a retro ever. I would have much preferred Wario Coliseum to come back before Waluigi Stadium got a second remake, but oh well, we got Waluigi Stadium, so how was it? Well, the issues that I have with DK Summit are also present here. The jankiness of the half pipes really knocks down this track a notch. It's mainly this that continues to solidify Wii's remake as the best version of this track. That and the Piranha cutouts look very weird now as they're pointing upwards. This just makes this part of the track easier and I don't like it that much. Plus, there are no bouncy signs. Where are these? Where are these little fuckers? These little happy buggers. Visually, this track looks good. While it's definitely noticeable that it's a DLC track, unlike tracks like Boo Lake and Yoshi's Island, it's also not as bland as, say, Choco Mountain. Although it doesn't really give me dirt track vibes in the same way that the original did. But it's not all bad. The half pipes being janky doesn't affect the gameplay as much on this track as it does on DK Summit, and if you do bear through the pain of them, you can access split pathing, which is really cool. It gives this track more versatility, which is definitely a welcomed improvement. This track gets a 7 out of 10. Definitely better than Waluigi Pinball, but could be improved gameplay wise. And the final DLC track so far is another tour track? We got 3 this wave. Why? Oh, that's why, because Singapore Speedway is an actual fucking banger. I get it. First off, I want to say that this blends in with the base game tracks perfectly. It doesn't look like a piece of shit, which is a massive plus. This music is the best we've gotten from a tour track as well. Driving on top of the skyscraper and seeing Goombas going on the nightly leisurely swim is really cool. And driving through the fruit stands is cool too. It gives me Shy Guy Bazaar vibes. The glider sections on this track are really cool too. The mechanic is utilised perfectly. Also, these? It's just a hint at Toad's Factory finally getting in the DLC. I really hope so, because they already have the asset for it. Singapore Speedway and Bangkok Rush are incredibly good tracks, and getting both of them in the same wave was definitely a blessing. Singapore Speedway gets a 9 out of 10. And that is it for Wave 4 of the DLC. I'm going to be honest, this gets a solid 8.5 out of 10 for me. I don't really dislike any of the tracks in this wave, and I think that it's brought to me my new favourite Mario Kart track, being Yoshi's Island. The only thing stopping it from getting a perfect 10 out of 10 is the jankiness of some tracks and the layout of Riverside Park. And there we have it. There is my opinion on every track in Wave 3 and 4, and hopefully this highlights some more of the reasons that I don't like the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC. Except for Yoshi's Island, I love Yoshi's Island. Although Wave 3 and 4 were a pleasant surprise as to how good the tracks can be, if you ignore Alpine Pass that is. Of course, again, you're allowed to disagree as long as you're nice about it. And if the DLC keeps up Wave 4's level of quality, it may be something that I consider buying. Oh, and of course if they add Rob back. What are your thoughts on the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC? Love it or hate it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. For the next waves, as they aren't out at the time of this video's release, I'll probably cover them when they come out, so be sure to subscribe to keep updated on when those videos come out. Also, leave a like if you enjoyed, it really helps me out more than you would think. And until next time, goodbye.